MPs in many constituencies are going to find that, my hospital is not being rebuilt, my school is not being rebuilt, and other, projects like this, which are, obviously valuable to people who live there and are valuable, politically as well. So it's these kind of trade-offs which, governments are always having to make, to be fair. But if you're saying that you want to stick within the fiscal rules, as Andy Burnham has said he's going to do, and if you still haven't got lots of economic growth, which, Andy Burnham said he would like to see, good growth in every postcode, but easier said than done, then it's going to be really hard to make these trade-offs.
When Labour came to power, they made a lot of what they called the black hole in the economy left by the Conservatives, and it's proved to be particularly contentious then and now, and indeed the government still face huge fiscal pressure. Andy Burnham will need to identify £7 billion of spending cuts to offset defence spending, as and when he becomes PM in just a couple of weeks now. Let's speak to our political correspondent, Terry Stiasny. Hello, Terry.
Hello, Calum.
It's one of the things that's just in my head today is where Andy Burnham's going to find room for manoeuvre in any number of different ways. So maybe it's on legislation, such as in the story we've just been talking about, and indeed in the grooming gang story we'll come to in a few minutes. Or maybe it's in fiscal consideration as well. What do we know about just how tight things are?
Well, we know that particularly where defence is concerned, one of the things that the government has said it's going to do at the moment in order to fund defence investment is to cut 1% from the capital budgets of all government departments, and more money than that in the case of the Transport Department and the Energy Department. So that means a kind of big project in health, which is going to lose £570 million over 4 years, or education, £314 million over 4 years. That means not rebuilding things, basically. And in the case of transport, for instance, it means not building things like road projects. And one of the difficulties for the government is that if you're cutting that kind of capital expenditure, it means that, MPs in many constituencies are going to find that, my hospital is not being rebuilt, my school is not being rebuilt, and other, projects like this, which are, obviously valuable to people who live there and are valuable, politically as well. So it's these kind of trade-offs which, governments are always having to make, to be fair. But if you're saying that you want to stick within the fiscal rules, as Andy Burnham has said he's going to do, and if you still haven't got lots of economic growth, which, Andy Burnham said he would like to see, good growth in every postcode, but easier said than done, then it's going to be really hard to make these trade-offs.
Yeah, and it is trade-offs. To govern is to decide, and all of that. I wonder if there is room anywhere in all of this for raising money through strategies and approaches that don't involve taxing everybody more. And I'm actually reminded of November last year when Offshore Energies UK, the kind of trade body for oil and gas and indeed offshore energy companies, said that if their own proposals to reform the energy profits levy were adopted by the government, and the government backs, there's the government's own scheme that the industry wants to adopt when it comes to a windfall tax, that actually they say that would yield an extra £15.7 billion in taxes within 10 years. So actually, maybe there is money to be found if Burnham knows where to look for it.
Again, there could be. I mean, it's interesting that Andy Burnham is going to be meeting trade unions at the Unison headquarters this afternoon. Of course, some of the people who have been particularly lobbying in favour of new oil and gas licences, for instance, are the trade unions. So he is quite likely to hear that from them in particular, because they believe that would drive economic growth. But again, on the other hand, if you are hoping to keep Ed Miliband in your cabinet, either in his current energy department or potentially as Chancellor has been reported, what are the trade-offs there in terms of net zero and climate? And do you look at that and think, okay, times are hard, we need that money, but then, have to make a difficult decision on that score? Yeah.
And the other part of that then is how you bring the Labour Party along with you, I suppose. If you have an Ed Miliband in a certain position, or if you don't, then that will upset or delight certain parts of the party, whatever decision you make. So how do you get them to come with you?
Yes, and I think we're getting, again, hints of the kinds of difficulties that Andy Burnham might have. I mean, there are a couple of Labour MPs who rebelled previously on welfare reform under Keir Starmer, saying, we still think that this is really important, that this is a line you need to hold. So financial security for disabled people or people on low pay, things like saying you should fund welfare, not weapons. And if Andy Burnham doesn't want to whip the these potential rebels hard, as he has again said he might do, that's going to be another circle that he is going to have to square. And we heard the current minister Jackie Smith this morning on Times Radio saying she didn't want to cut money from pensioners, but she didn't mind cutting the kind of money that keeps people out of work. So, again, welfare reform, that's going to be another question of trade-offs.
Yeah, trade-offs galore await Andy Burnham. Some Labour MPs have indicated that perhaps it was just the wrong type of welfare reform last time out. What do we know about Andy Burnham's approach to the welfare spend, which is much talked about and is growing hugely, as we know? And so where Labour MPs sit on that, are they persuadable to reduce the welfare bill?
I think it very much depends on how it is done. I mean, when we heard from Andy Burnham at the beginning of the week, he was talking quite favourably about Alan Milburn's report into NEETs, and he was saying that you need to have these life chances for children. We need to reduce the welfare bill, in Andy Burnham's words, in a way that is fair and lasting, and trying to do things in a slightly different way. So trying to give people mental health support as part of support for people within work. So he does certainly seem to be amenable to some kind of reform on that basis, but we don't know that much yet about how he is going to do that.
Yeah, Terry, thank you very much indeed. We will keep talking about where Andy Burnham can find his room for manoeuvre. Who can he go to? Who will give it to him? How tough is it going to be? There's a lot of talk, of course, about his honeymoon, and it needs to be more glowing than Sir Keir Starmer's, which was so negative and so difficult. And perhaps it was reality, but it didn't land very well. And that's the key part of how Andy Burnham has to navigate the messaging when he takes over, as we expect he will, in a couple of weeks. I don't know why I have to keep doing that disclaimer. It's all a bit ludicrous, isn't it?
It might still not have this outside chance. You never know.
Outside chance, yeah, in theory, all that. We'll keep saying it regardless for the next couple of weeks. Right, there's a couple of stories breaking this afternoon, and I'm sorry, it feels today like one of those heavy news days, doesn't it? But these are important stories, and we'll discuss them sensitively. We will offer analysis, and of course we will consider the political implications of all the various things that we've got going on this afternoon. This news has just broken that a cast member from Married at First Sight has been arrested on suspicion of rape after a BBC Panorama investigation into that particular reality TV show. You'll remember when that was the investigation was first published a few weeks ago now. Well, a cast member has been arrested on suspicion of rape.